So it's story time. I'm going to tell you a story about one of my clients that really made me fine-tune my business practices and caused me to become such a big advocate for veterans and veteran benefits. My client's name's Paul, and Paul came to me about 7 years ago already, which is, wow, it's amazing. He called me up out of the blue and said, I need help. I'm a military veteran. I have my pre-approval. I need to find a house. I'm ripping my son's house to shreds. And in the conversation I had with him, I found out that he's a first-time homeowner or home buyer. Him and his wife have been together for several years. He has suffered from Agent Orange, and he was in a wheelchair. So it was going to be really difficult for me to go out and take him to show houses. But he had a couple other special needs that were really important to him. He lived with his sons because he did have a higher level of care that he needed due to his Agent Orange exposure. And he didn't want to put the burden 100% on his wife. But at the same time, living with his sons, it was really hard on the family because his son's house was a 2-story colonial, and Paul was living in their den. He had no private bathroom, he had no private bedroom, and he was literally destroying his son's house with his wheelchair. So he reached out to me and said, I don't know what to do, but I need to do something. And I don't want to burden my wife by keeping us too far away from the family. What are my options? And I had just really started working with veterans at that time. I didn't know a whole lot about it, but listening to his story, my heart broke. And I'm like, I don't know what we can do, but we're going to do something because we need to get you a house. So I decided to meet up with him. I went to his house where he lived with his son. And looking around the house, I could tell immediately what he was talking about. All the doors were scuffed up. He could barely make it from one room to another because of the width of his wheelchair. So he was pretty much confined from going from the den to the kitchen to a powder room. And that's where he would have to bathe or have his nurse come in and help him. And it's just not the way that anybody should live, especially somebody who gave so much to serve our country. And, I got to meet his wife, and their grandkids were running in and out throughout the room, and he stole my heart. And I'm like, I have to find a way to help him. And he lived in an area that was pretty populated, but there were still some residential lots available in the subdivision. And he asked me, he's like, would it be possible for me to build a house? And I'm like, we'd have to do a construction loan. It's going to be hard. Do you have the finances? Just so many different things popped up in my head immediately saying, no, 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 no. And then I looked at him and I looked at his wife and how much they loved each other. And I'm like, that's not a good answer. I have to find a better way. So I learned about the SAH, the Specialty Adaptive Housing Program, and grants. I called every single person who owned land in that subdivision and pretty much begged them to consider taking our offer and working with us. And I got super lucky. We were able to find the owner of the lot right next door to Paul's family. And I called the builder, I told him the story, and at first, the first person I talked to was like, nope, can't help you, can't help you, can't help you. And I didn't give up. I called this builder like 5 times. Finally, I talked to the owner of the company, and I said, look, here's our situation. This is what I need you to do. I need you to build this home. I need you to build it with a VA loan. I need you to front the cost of the build of the home. Oh, and by the way, he's a disabled veteran. I really need you to work with a VA to use this SAH housing allowance, so that way we can specialize the house for him. And I could see just like the blood draining from the builder's face because of the mountains and mountains of paperwork that was associated with it. And I just stared at him like a little puppy dog, like, please help us. And he did it. Like, miracles opened, he did it. And it was such a heartwarming story because he met Paul, and we went out to the property. He met Paul, he met Paul's wife, and we drew up the plans of the perfect house for them. A house that Paul could freely move around and could make his own dinner and take a bath and have the privacy of taking his own bath. Things that we take for granted, he was able to do on his own without having to depend on his wife and his family or his nurse. It was fantastic for him. And we got to watch this develop over the course of a year for his house to be built. And the builder was so awesome and even built like a cement walkway that attached Paul's house to his son's house, which I thought was like super cool. So that way in the middle of winter, he could go back and forth without a problem, be 100% self-sufficient. So we closed in the fall of 2016. And at the closing table, I found out that it was him and his wife's 50th wedding anniversary. For 50 years, this couple were together and went through the trials and tribulations and celebrations and, you know, the joys of raising a huge family, but had never had the honor and the ownership of having their own house. And finally they had it. And it was a house that Paul could, you know, be comfortable in and be whole in. And it was just like the best sweet ending to the situation. It was great. It was such an awesome story. Paul is 100% up there in my best client books because he got everything he needed and deserved, and it was an awesome ending. And, you know, talking to him, he brought up several times that he never bought before because he didn't think he could. He didn't think he could afford it. He didn't think that it was a good fit for him. And he looked at me the day of closing and he's like, girl, why didn't I meet you 35 years ago? This is insane. So it's one of my favorite stories, and seeing the smile on their faces and knowing that he was able to spend his last few years having the freedom and the ability to be self-sufficient was just 100% why I am here today and I do the things that I do for our veterans.